All right, you are now tuned in to the Rotated Views, episode number 22. I am your host, Jimmylee Velez. This theme is called Feeling Frustrated. I am here with Goose, Heck, and Gabe. And in this episode titled Feeling Frustrated, we discuss our stories of frustration, dealing with frustration in our children, overcoming frustration, and advice to folks who are completely frustrated with life. We wrap up the episode with quotes from Joyce Meyer and Tony Robbins. All right, so if you are new to the podcast, just FYI, we release, however you want to say it, a new episode every Tuesday morning on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Music, etc. The rest is found there. If you're looking for specific, topics, we have episode descriptions. The episode titles that we use basically describe what we're talking about. I know a lot of podcasts are out there have very vague titles. We try to keep it simple, so sometimes you just kind of want to thumb through something. You're feeling in some type of way, or feeling a certain mood or whatever. It's there. We keep it very simple. It's a bunch of guys, 5 guys total. 4 of the 5 are dads. We kind of just give our perspective on life. Some funny parts are in there, talk about dad life, etc. Occasionally we will have a guest. Look forward to that more in the future. With that being said, how we kick off every episode is with a story. And once again, I'm going to switch it up for you guys. This is actually going to be tips. This is by Dragos Rua, and it's 33 ways to overcome frustration. So this is 33 ways to overcome frustration. And he on his website, you can find this. You could probably Google it or whatever. And again, the guy's name's Dragos Rua. So that's R-O-U-A. Probably mispronouncing that. But he actually goes to further detail with each title, each of the 33 ways to overcome frustration. But I'm just going to list them. And maybe in that list, we can enhance our, topic of discussion. And with that, maybe that'll actually help somebody, out there listening overcome frustration. Before I get into that, though, I want to define frustration by dictionary.com. And it goes like this: a feeling of dissatisfaction often accompanied by anxiety or depression resulting from unfulfilled needs or unresolved problems. I felt that was like a perfect way to describe frustration. So back to Dragos Rua, 33 ways to overcome frustration. Number 1, accept reality. 2, shift your focus. 3, talk about it with a friend. 4, journal it. 5, write a letter about it. 6, write a worst case scenario. 7, identify a list of possible actions. 8, sleep over it. 9, be your own avatar. 10, read something funny. 11, stop blaming yourself. 12, take a walk. 13, see it from the future. 14, cook a delicious meal. 15, go to a party. 16, write about your past successes. 17, borrow some enthusiasm. 18, soak and dry. 19, go watch a comedy. 20, attack it with the why weapon. 21, volunteer for something. 22, stand up and fight. 23, stop blaming others. 24, do small, repetitive tasks. 25, see it from the past. 26, read similar stories. 27, assess progress. 28, disguise it. 29, contrast it with a worse situation. 30, dilute it with meditation. 31, get physical. 32, this too shall pass. And 33, write a list of 33 ways to overcome frustration. All right, with that being said, I felt like the list could have been, hammered down smaller. There's a couple of repetitive stuff like go for a jog, and then he has get physical. But anyway, sleep over it, I like, right? Was there any ones that stood out for you guys as we're like... I
like accept reality.
Yeah.
Soak and dry.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Stop blaming others.
Yeah. That the soak and dry one's really good because that, I mean, we talk about this all the time. Actually, accept what that goes into with also accepting reality. Cry it out, let it go, release it. That's called living life to the fullest. Yeah. It might sound strange that we're telling you go ahead and cry, but when the happy parts, the high parts of life happen, you're going to appreciate them that much more because you remembered how low you were at this frustrated moment.
And there's a reason why there's a term called tears of frustration.
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm a Christian, so I always like the "this too shall pass" kind of mentality. That's just I mean, everything we talked about last week. Check out our podcast titled "Confidence." Everything happens for a reason, and when you know that eventually the dots will eventually connect. You just have to know that the overall picture in life, this too shall pass. You'll get over this. Yes, it is. That's not to take away the frustration. That's kind of like, I can't stand when people, you ever have like a problem and then someone tries to like one up your problem while you're trying to tell them. It's so annoying. It's like, I didn't say I had the worst problem in the world. I was just saying I have a problem.
Yeah. But that's usually like somebody has to prove that their problems are worse. But
It's like, oh man.
Or it could be trying to make you feel better. Your problem isn't that bad.
Yeah, true.
I think, and to be honest with you, I think a lot of times it might be that it's just delivered the wrong way.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it can come off as offensive too. Yeah. It's like, oh man, I don't know how we're going to pay bills this week or this month. And it was like, well, how do you think I felt? I went through bankruptcy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
that's kind of
it's
the way
trying to be relatable, but in the worst possible way.
Right.
It's the delivery.
It's the lowest form of relatability.
Bankruptcy.
It's like, dude, I was just talking about I couldn't pay a phone bill. I mean, I know, and the worst part is, it's like I know you have worse, and I'm not saying either that this is the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, right.
Some people like, oh, you could be dead. You're like, dude, relax. Seriously.
Yeah.
You're the worst kind of friend.
I'm frustrated with you. Get lost.
Yeah, I mean, I like to take a walk, like the physical stuff. That's me. I like going for a jog. I like working out. We talked about this before too. Releasing frustration. Sometimes, writing it down, and for me, it's doodling and going jogging or working out. To me, that's like I could clear my thoughts that way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what like actually a lot of it, like a bunch of them seem to be when you're frustrated at a certain task. It's like you need to just get up and walk away from it for a while, which is a lot of it. What that is, like go jog, go cook something. It's just getting away for the situation for the moment. It lets you clear your head and just kind of come back with a clearer mind.
Yeah, and I think too, like the thing with frustration is, a lot of times the reason why we're frustrated is because initially we have this unrealistic expectation, right? Yeah. We set ourselves up for failure. A lot of the times, I'm not saying that's what always creates, frustration, but a lot of the times we set ourselves up for that frustration, right? So a perfect example could be, you have $50 to last you till next pay. That's, kind of just money that you could spend on whatever. But then you also have to think, you have like a cooler tank of gas and it's Monday, right? So it's like, all right, maybe I should drop like $25, $30 in here and have $20 for the week. Or you could be a knucklehead and then spend the $50 and go buy like clothes or something or sneakers. Then come Wednesday evening and you don't have gas to get to work.
You got those new sneakers to push your car to the gas station.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, no, well, you don't even have the money for it. So then you created that frustrating situation. Absolutely. You know what I mean? So a lot of times we create the situations on ourselves. That doesn't, mean to, take away from. I'm trying to think of like a funny, frustrating. To me, I know personally, for me, a lot of times I'm frustrated is because I have unrealistic expectations. Yeah. A lot of the times I think bigger and I dream bigger. I call myself the dream king because everything's always to a whole other level of what it could be. It was like when we're talking about renting something down the shore this summer, we're talking about getting, let's call hotels, whatever. And I'm like, let's rent a house. It's like that. That's how my thing. I just go straight for the big, forget it. Let's buy a hotel. It literally went to that point where that's what we're discussing.
Just build one while we're there.
Yeah. So it's, and then that doesn't happen within a small time frame. You can be, I wasn't frustrated about that, obviously. But it's stuff like that you have to watch because you can really set yourself up, really just get pissed off. The other thing is we have unexpected, we put unrealistic expectations on other people.
Yeah.
So we expect them to perform a certain way to a certain caliber to our understanding of life. And when they don't, we get frustrated.
Yeah, especially if it's like something that like you're in a partnership, whatever, with somebody, and they're not. Maybe they have a bad day or something. They're not in the same mind frame you are at that moment or whatever it is. Yeah, you're expecting them to do the same, be on the same level as you are, and it's like, yeah, you can't force somebody to do something you're, at the moment they're not going to want to do. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just said that relationship reminded me of like something at work too. Like if there's a work project or something like that, you had this higher expectation, or when once again putting expectations on other people, you do such a good job at something and then you don't get like, I guess like the recognition or the credit for it or whatever, you're frustrated.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes that's like, you know, do me wrong, you know, one time, that's your fault, you know, do me wrong again, it's my, but you have to learn from those situations. So yes, the frustration everyone's going to taste a little bit of frustration. Here, these 33 ways is trying to, I guess, help you overcome that frustration. You know, like identifying a list of possible actions, right? And then writing a worst case scenario. I feel like that will help you get through being frustrated. For me, an easy one, honestly, like my easiest thing to overcome frustration, or like if I'm like not, it can go beyond frustration. Like I'm ticked off about something, I go straight to Instagram and I follow like a bunch of like comedians or whatever, and I just see what they post or whatever. Because sometimes they're videos, so I'm like laughing my butt off, or like, you know, like human fails or something like that. I go to that, like seeing people get, you know, fall off, fall off a chair or something funny.
People doing dumb things.
Yeah, exactly. So then I just like crack up, laugh, and that always and never fails. Like that's my go-to if I'm kind of like, you know, I can't go work out, obviously.
You know, it's funny you said like the worst case scenario was that I think I still have it at work. It's like random, like, you know, those little Dove chocolate things.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was for. It was like, but they had like little sayings inside of it, and I think I still have it on my desk till today. It says something like the worst thing you can think of most likely would never happen.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's an interesting thing to have inside of a chocolate bar. But
yeah,
I was like,
wow, it's like deep too.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That's
wow.
Yeah, I mean that's what fear is. It's a false reality. It's not really there. Same thing. The future is a non-existent thing. It's still something that we fear. Still something that we, you know, whatever.
Something you put upon yourself.
Right. It's exactly. So we're putting all these, you know, unrealistic, you know, they're just not real.
Which I guess goes to 11, which is stop blaming yourself with the.
Exactly. But it's also good though to stop blaming other people too in that same list.
Exactly.
So I mean that you know.
It goes both sides of the coin.
Absolutely. Now, would you guys do small repetitive tasks? I read that and I'm like, what would that be?
like, yeah, what would that be?
Just keep your mind
Counting
busy.
rubber bands?
Just do something to keep your mind
Could.
busy.
I mean, yeah.
This guy turned into Rain Man over here. 552.
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying repetitive is to do something over.
Yeah. I like this though too, borrow some enthusiasm. There's this person I used to work with that used to call like Mr. Happy or Mrs. Happy, I forget what it was. But it was funny because you ever go around this person and they were always emphatic about life and in general. Sometimes it was super cheesy, but when you're down and out kind of thing, you didn't even care. You just wanted something. You're like, dude, I need something positive in my life. I don't even care if this is fake and cheesy. I know me and Gabe, we used to hang out with a bunch of guys that are like super emphatic, like over the top. Yeah. But to be honest with you, sometimes you need that. Cause at that moment we were in college and working. So we were just like frustrated with a lot of stuff. Not even just, it was just a lot. You're under a lot of stress. You know, it is what it is. I know one of the funniest things that I was ever frustrated about was not hitting puberty fast enough. I don't know why I was so frustrated. Because first of all, let me say this. I was a late bloomer. So like I hit my spurt like from 11th going into 12th. So you can imagine I was the smallest in 9th grade, second smallest in 9th grade, talking about height, and graduated the second tallest.
Huh.
So I have no idea why I was so frustrated. I just wanted to be, when we talked about like Legion of Doom and wrestling, they're like 6 foot nothing, 6 foot something with like 200 pounds. And I always said that. I'm like, I want to be 6'2", 200 pounds. I always said that. Yeah. And here I am, 6'3", literally 200 pounds. Exactly. So It's very weird, but at that moment I was frustrated. I guess that's kind of hard though in the adolescent stage for someone to go through, because all you want to do is like, I just want to be a man. I just want to be
Especially
big.
if you see everyone else around you. Like,
Well, that's what it was. I was a late bloomer, so everyone around me was all muscular, deep voices, huge beards, and not beards. The guys had like weird mustaches. Actually, it was kind of funny. But when we grew up, people didn't really keep their mustaches. That we're at the era, I think everyone shaved.
Yeah.
But like now, I'm sure kids want to grow big beards or whatever. But yeah, that was one big. I mean, I was like frustrated. Like every day, I was frustrated.
But that's something you literally can't control with any part of it.
Not
It's
what
like biology. It's like
you can't
get,
wait
you
for it
get
to
frustrated
happen.
at your parents.
You
Yeah,
can't wait
like,
for it to
oh,
happen.
you're
And when it's like, when it's happening, when it's there, it's like you don't even care
Same
for
thing.
it.
Okay, so I have skinny legs, so it's the same thing. So I'm frustrated with that. But there's genetics again. Like no matter. I done so many calf raises, like 500 pounds instead on this regimen, and it was like nothing, dude.
Yeah.
It's just like I got nothing. It doesn't matter.
Like your jeans miss leg day.
Yeah, it's like totally miss leg day. There was this funny,
Always.
There's this funny meme where this guy, this bodybuilder, was so obnoxiously big that he got too big for his head, literally. And they're like, dang, this dude missed head day. I don't know why I thought that was so funny. But his head looked so tiny in the picture.
Peanut.
Yeah. Oh, man. But anyway, so what I had to do, which he puts here, being, in 15 years old, he has here as number 2. 1 and 2. 1, accept reality. 2, shift your focus. So I had to use that for my advantage. So I was small and short. That meant I was quick in sports. So I kind of used that, to my advantage and just went with it. Also being skinny and lanky, I was good at, bowling and golf. You like kind of flimsy limbs or whatever. Mm-hmm. You don't find like a real jacked meathead or anything really golfing or bowling. So I used that to my advantage. Yeah, I was scrawny and whatever. So I thought, football, I might get, the lights knocked out of me. It's probably not the best idea being, 5 foot nothing, 85 pounds. So I went with the next best thing. But I shifted my focus. I stopped being quote unquote frustrated, because then I became really good, at golf, really good at, doing the bowling thing. And then when I hit the growth spurt, then we went back and played. I always played baseball, but yeah, and baseball was funny too, because I moved in the lineup. The bigger you are, the stronger you are, whatever. So I mean, it's kind of cool. It was just something that was, interesting to me. That was my frustrating story that I had to say. Do you guys have frustrating stories where you're just like frustrated? I know another one could be like money, where all your friends could be like doing something, like going on spring break or going on a vacation or hooking up their cars, and you're just like frustrated, like, dude, I don't have the money to do that. I just want to be a part of the group. I just want to be a part of, and this has to really go back to like when you're a teenager stuff. Like now, obviously, it's totally different.
I would get frustrated when I didn't think. Well, I had a 96 Volkswagen GTI, and I didn't think like I did anything to it. Meanwhile, it was lowered, had wheels, had stereo system, and I always kept it clean because I detailed. But I would get frustrated with, like, I'll see other people's cars. I'm like, dang, yo, where they get the money to put this stuff together, and how do they get this, and how do they keep on doing all this? And I would just get frustrated. Meanwhile, my car was decent looking at the time, and I always got compliment on it, but I didn't think of the compliment. I always thought of what someone else had. To me, it was like, I would get frustrated with that. Like, how, like, I was, I guess, in a competition with myself.
Yeah.
That people didn't even know it. I don't know. It was like, it was pretty strange, and I would just get frustrated about that.
I think I don't know if Kel did, my wife. I know I did. I got really frustrated with the home buying situation. Well, the frustrating part for me was I wanted to be out of my parents' house at a certain time. So I had that in my mind. Also, we were legit looking and couldn't find anything. If we found it, it was in, the school district we didn't want to be. If it was over the price range that we wanted it to be. So it became a very frustrating thing. And I never forget finding the house that we currently live in and saying, man, I wish it was like $20,000 cheaper. Yeah. And I remember just like slamming my laptop closed, whatever, walking away, blah, blah, blah. I kid you not. So then leading up to our wedding, we got, married in October. Here we are in August. People tell you don't do too many major life changes all together. Guess what pops up all back on the market? Because at first it said sold or, pending, sale pending or whatever. Pops up back on the market. How much less do you think it was?
$20,000.
$20,000 less. And guess what, guys? I bought the house. It's interesting that I gave up on just looking. Not that I gave up. I was like, we got to do this after the wedding. This is like, I was stressing myself out for no reason because it wasn't really a necessity. We didn't have to get a house at that very moment or that month or whatever it was. But yeah, so, I mean, with the Hell House thing, that was just something that I guess I wanted to do. That's just kind of like, let's do it now. I think, once again, it was unrealistic expectations for a situation that I put myself in, and it was totally unnecessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you guys have any?
I was thinking actually, it was, I guess for me, it's a little more educational because going to college, like I've always been like in high school and stuff, I was decent in math, and like I was one of the kids, like at least in the math course, I really didn't have to study that much.
Yeah.
And actually, I started like high school math in 8th grade anyway, so I was like one of the select few of like going that. So like going to high school, like math wasn't that bad, but it was no way prepared for going into college. So when I went to, somehow my placement test placed me into Calc 1. I don't know how in the world I did that. I took no calculus at all in high school. I mean, I ended on Algebra 2, whatever the heck it was.
That's great.
Or it was like some weird thing, some weird low level like calculus like function thing. But yeah, I like went in there, like I assumed like, okay, I can kind of bypass. It was like whatever we did before was like done in like the first couple classes. And I was like, I had no idea what the heck I was doing. And it was like me, I was so used to being decent at it that it just, you know, I had no idea what the heck I was doing. The tutoring didn't help that much because I was totally in a situation where I just didn't understand the material.
Did you feel like you got unfairly placed, or you just felt like, because obviously it wasn't,
but I like it was like my expectations of like, you know, oh, I've always been good at this, so like now it's like I'm in a totally different, you know, ballpark now, and it's like it was frustrating because I usually am good at this type of situation, and it's like now I'm not.
That is hilarious. We actually ran into a guy at Temple who was, I guess, you know, the golden child of everything he did. He was like great at in sports, blah, blah, blah. And then finally he came up against a challenge. It was really being a leader, a true leader, getting people together and organizing a huge project. And it was different because in college, people, and this was senior year, people become more independent. So they stop becoming dependent on each other or their best friends because either they went to another college or whatever, and they're separated from their parents. So people, by the time you get to your senior year, you get to learn how to make stuff happen on your own. So he was under the impression that since he was so good at everything, he could also organize this massive group of people and, you know, put together this awesome project in a very short period of time. What he quickly found out was he couldn't. Or if he actually could, I shouldn't say he couldn't as effectively as he thought he was going to, you know, be able to. But at the end of the day, he actually quit. So he didn't even do it.
Oh, man.
So that was beyond frustrated. He got like ticked off and just, you know, it was a shot at his ego. This kid was literally like, everything he touched just seemed like it turned to gold.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then he got praised for it too. I mean, this guy was, you know, had dry cleaning in college. So put it that way. He had a BMW and had dry cleaning in college. Dude, okay? 20-inch wheels on his BMW.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. Whenever that was cool. But going like mid 2000s. But still, like, that was like when the one thing popped up and he couldn't do it, boom, he just quit. It was done, it was over with. It just wasn't his thing. And it's very interesting because one of these tips that this guy gives, Dragos here, with the 33 ways to overcome frustration, number 22 is stand up and fight. Yeah. Right? That goes to my question, is frustration relative? Absolutely it is, yes. Right? It's because it's how you perceive it, because what Goose thinks is frustrating may not be frustrating to me, right? That'd be like me going to his barbershop and trying to cut someone's hair and it look obviously like Edward Scissorhands like was there. Of course I'm going to be frustrated. The customer's going to be frustrated, right? Because that's not what they asked for, but that's easy for him. So it's definitely relative.
Yeah, exactly. Because exactly. It's your perception of the success of how well you're being successful at what you're trying to do.
And we've all sat in traffic before, right? Frustrated out, the gills, right? You got to go to work. We got to get to some place, and then you look over, and some person's like singing in their car, happy as can be. Very, very relative. Very, it's all about perception. Life is all about the angles. But going back to standing up and fight, like seriously, I know there's a lot of times I've been frustrated, and I'm not sure if I gave up or just walked away from something, whatever. But there hasn't been a lot of them.
Yeah.
I can't remember. You have to stand up and fight because that is part of life's challenges. This is not easy.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's just to test you to see how strong you really are, to challenge you mentally, right? How much can you overcome? Someone once told me a story. It was by the preacher Joel Osteen. He gave the example of a bow, like the bow and arrow. And they said, we were talking about trajectory. So trajectory is like how far something can go from where it's at, right? So they're saying, when you pull the bow back halfway, how far is it going to go versus when you pull the bow all the way back?
Yeah.
That the trajectory and then the way you aim is going to be way further. But what happens when you're pulling the bow all the way back? It's more stress. It's harder. It's more pressure. You're sweating. You can't take it. You're shaking.
Yeah.
And then you let go, but the result is that much more better, right? So it's like they say, pressure creates diamonds. Otherwise, they're just little lumps of coal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's that. And dude, that example, I guarantee that's always going to stick with you. That example with the bow and arrow always stuck with me. But in those courses of being frustrated, know that it's like the bow and arrow, that this means the reward is going to be greater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reward is going to be better. So with moving on from those stories and 33 ways of, overcoming frustration, is there something that you tell your kids to overcome frustration? Because I know our kids have all been frustrated at, a point in time. Is there something like a story or something where, your kid's frustrated and you guys are just kind of like walking them through it?
Yeah, but your 2-year-old walks by and tells you, "I'm frustrated," and yells it at you, but you don't know why because they're walking out of the room because they can't put something together. It's funny to watch her walk out of the room, Nova, and just yell that.
Yeah.
She has no idea, but she used it in the perfect context because she was definitely angry at,
That's funny.
I guess, one of her toys or whatever, and I'm just like, "Boo-boo, what is going on?" And she goes on with her little story, what happened. But yeah, she definitely comes out. And then, I get the other one that storms off and stomping away. I'm like, why are you stomping? Oh, well, because they said that on Daniel Tiger, the cartoon, of course, the little kiddie show, they tell you that if you're angry or frustrated, stomp 2 times and then walk away. I'm like, really? The worst
Kel
advice
changed the channel
ever.
Kel
The
gets
worst
so
advice
mad.
for them to give its child.
Oh,
So,
yeah, of course.
so, of course, Laney goes around stomping up the steps. I'm like, Lane, you do not. I'm angry. I'm like, well, you're not that angry. You stomping up the
that's
steps. Are
crazy.
frustrated.
I
I'm like,
remember that.
it's I just laugh at them because they're really not that frustrated. I mean, things aren't that. I mean, obviously, like us, we think the worst and they're thinking the worst also.
Yeah.
But like in reality, we're looking down at them and what could they possibly be frustrated about? They got the perfect life
Going
right
back to the
now.
previous one, like frustration is relative. That's
Yeah.
They have child frustration.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
Whatever the heck that's supposed to mean, but
I mean, yeah, but there's also the parents that are like, "Oh, you don't know what it's like to be me." Just like brutal and cutthroat about it. You know what I mean?
you don't know what it is to have 84 children.
yeah, you don't know what it is to be me.
Yeah.
I got 20 kids.
Oh, dude,
That's funny.
I can go stories days in and days out with the one-uppers. Oh man, how are you doing? I'm good, man. I'm like a little tired, but I'm good. Oh, and that's with only one kid, dude. I have 2. Like, oh my gosh, dude. All right, well, then don't ask me. What in the world? But yeah, I know James with the bike is hilarious. So he has this bike that's called the Strider. So it has the 2, obviously set up like a regular bike, but it actually doesn't have pedals. So it's just like they call it like or balance bikes or whatever. So he's getting like, a hang of it. But sometimes his turns aren't as sharp as he wants to be. So he kind of like crashes into like whatever, the wall or whatever piece of furniture that's there. He goes, "Ah!" and he like moves it and just like whatever. So he's frustrated.
Yeah.
Or when he leans it, he leans it up on like a couch or something. He goes, "I gotta park my bike. That's a motorcycle, Dad. I gotta park my motorcycle." Right. So I'm just laughing. I'm just like going with it. I'm like, "All right, buddy. Yeah, park your motorcycle or whatever." So he parks it and then it falls because he put it at like a wrong angle. And he's like, "Ah!" Like he just does that, like just puts his like fist together, or he just starts crying.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, it's not that big of a deal. Going back to it's all relative.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal. But in his mind, that's his world. That man, that's
absolutely.
everything. You know what I mean? Like he has no idea. He's inside with a helmet on, going like in little baby circles or whatever. He has no idea that parking his quote unquote motorcycle and it falls to him. He doesn't want to mess it up. To me, I thought it was funny. It fell on the rug. Yeah, but I don't know. The other thing too is dealing with adult situations in front of your children, right? Being frustrated at life, and then you're mad because you're in a rush for work, and the reason why you're mad is because of you, because you didn't get up early, and then you're frustrated buckling your kid in.
Yep.
Right? Not even that you did anything wrong to the kid, but they sense that frustration. They're trying to figure out what in the world they did wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You're not even saying anything to them, but they just feel
that
the
blame
like
is
the
on
heat.
them somehow.
Yeah. Right? I think everyone's done that once in a while. You just put the kid in and you're like, everything's just like, your mind just like all over the place.
Yep.
But that's just like an example, like setting your kid up or dropping them off, or holding their hand. If you're being frustrated about something that has nothing to do with them, you kind of grip their hand a little bit tighter when you're crossing the street or whatever.
Yeah.
Everything seems to like it kind of goes on with the waking up on the wrong side of the bed kind of thing. It just sets your morning off, sets your day off in this trajectory that is not so good and not in your quote unquote favor. But it definitely is relative.
I have some with Ava a couple years back. In school, she was learning how to read. Obviously, like she's second grade then. So she was having little issues with reading, and she was able to read the words, but she wasn't comprehending what she was reading. So she was a little frustrated with reading like storybooks or whatever. So then, towards the end of the year, during math, they started learning word problems. So she's already struggling how to read and comprehend.
Yeah.
Then they start doing math word problems. So she was totally lost.
Yeah.
So she was so frustrated, and like she would read a story but wouldn't understand it.
Yeah.
And couldn't get why. Like Sally has 2 quarters and Bobby has 2 quarters. How many quarters do they all have? She couldn't figure it out. She was like, well, then I should have 2 quarters. Like she would just make up her own little thing because she couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
So then we got her a tutor and someone that was like well knowledgeable in that area, focused and studied with her, and now like for a whole year, now she's like excelled in reading, and now she just wants to read chapter books and stuff like that. But before, it was so frustrating that she didn't want to read, she didn't want to do anything. She hated math class, she hated everything, and she would like sometimes cry, like wouldn't even want to go to school just for that. So there was a point where seeing her frustrated kind of like got me like frustrated, because I'm like, am I doing something wrong? I'm not helping her enough. It just like it turns into like a double whammy right there.
Blaming yourself.
It's tough. It's tough though with kids though, because then you feel terrible.
Yeah.
Especially if they're like, that example is perfect when they're frustrated with something that's a legit thing to be frustrated about. It's not that they're just being a big baby about it. It's like, oh man, that sucks. Like they really, that would kill me.
Yeah.
I'd be like all watery eyed, choked up, trying to be, come on, we can do this.
And you're trying to explain as much as you can. They're still not getting it. So it's it sucks.
That's brutal. My my freshman year of college, I
learned how to read.
That was when I first learned how to read. I mean, so think about how frustrated I was. So my freshman year, I think I said the story all the time, but I broke my arm. And, same thing. You can't do this normal hanging out with the people that they did on the weekends. You got to watch, because there's knuckleheads. People are all acting crazy, silly, bumping in. Dude, I had 2 pieces of poles sticking out of my arm. Pins and rods and all this kind of stuff, trying to hold my arm together. So my current situation where I broke my foot right now, it's broken, and we have the vacation, planned or whatever. So we're going on vacation. We're going down, to the shore or whatever. And kind of the same thing where I'm like frustrated, because in my mind I want to do all these things. I had I want to do the water park. I want to do swimming in the ocean. And I can have I have like the the whatever, the cast cover, the waterproof cast cover or whatever. but it's hard because that beach is super long.
Yeah.
So to get to that point, I mean, hop in, or I just constantly feel like I'm inconveniencing someone else. Even like, you know, but in the back of my mind, I got to limit the frustration. I have to really make that as small as possible. Same thing with my wife. We have a 2-year-old and, you know, she's dealing with him. So in my mind, I'm trying to be the most, you know, least pain in the butt that I can be. So I don't ask for anything on everything I could possibly do. Literally, I just do she's at a point where she's like, you have to ask because I'm not even paying. I'm thinking of James. I'm like, well, that's all I want you.
You don't want to
about.
feel like another 2-year-old.
Yeah, I'm sitting there crawling on the floor with my plate of dinner. It's like, all right, well, you can hand me that. That's not that much of an inconvenience. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, because you just feel like I'm just trying to be out of the way. But, you know, that's how I'm dealing with it. And initially I thought, man, what are the odds of this? Of course it's going to happen, blah, 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 blah. But then you got to like, all right, after you get over that initial stage, it's really not that big of a deal. You'll get through it, and, you know, same thing, how I always think, this too shall pass. You're going to have a great time. It's going to be all right. Yeah, of course it's not ideal. A lot of stuff that happens in life is not ideal, right? Yeah. Actually, 95% of life is not ideal, right?
If nothing ever happens the way you plan it, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have plans. It's nice to, you know, set yourself up for success, but don't set yourself up for failure with the false expectations.
Yeah, you have to understand to be flexible in whatever situation
yeah,
happens.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the best word right there. Flexible. Being flexible with whatever the world curveball life is going to throw at you. This is hysterical. I didn't even realize this was on here. Cook a delicious meal. Not even that you're just cooking. It's cooking a delicious meal.
A delicious meal.
Now,
cook a terrible meal.
But doesn't that go, like, being frustrated, doesn't that, like, feed into the fact of a level of weakness? Isn't that like almost like an addiction? Like, so how people they find them as addictions. They find as like an outlet to escape something. So if it's frustration, every time they're frustrated, they grab a can of beer and then they drink that. Eventually, as soon as they get frustrated, they go straight to the beer. Yeah. It's almost like a stimulus, right? Yeah. So if every time you're frustrated, you go and eat something, that's gonna cause binge eating, unhealthy, lifestyle. I don't like that at all. I totally disagree with that. But I guess if it's talking about like cooking or something,
I can't even cook delicious.
No, but why is it delicious? Like,
I know
cooking is sauce.
It's hysterical.
Is that what it is? Like,
it almost makes it creepy.
Yeah, you're just setting yourself up for failure right there.
Yeah.
Cook a terrible meal, you frustrate your meal.
Especially for me anyway.
Yeah, delicious, dude? Really? I can't even have garlic powder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What's delicious without that?
Cook a bland meal.
Cook the best bland meal, the most delicious bland meal you can possibly cook.
Jeez, oh man.
All right, so with that being said, what would you say to someone who is frustrated with life and is ready for a change? So this is good. You actually have someone who's ready to move forward. Right. They, quote unquote, accepted the reality. But they're actually coming to you for advice. What would you say to this person? So it's kind of alluding back to what this guy says, his 33, reasons, to overcome frustration. What would our reasons, you could piggyback on one of the ideas he had there, but what would you say to somebody who's actually ready to change? They're not just moping around and, upset with life. They're ready to move forward. What do you say to that person? Whether it's your kid, friend, brother, relative, parent.
Like if they know what they want to do, it's like kind of go like encourage, like go have at it, like just encourage them to do what they want to do, because if they're ready to do it, they're in the mindset to like just get the task done, I guess. Yeah, if that makes any sense.
I mean, I feel like we've basically touched upon this really this whole time, especially if it's for someone who's ready to move forward. Yeah, I mean, letting them know or reminding them really that this is the circle of life. Yeah. This is part of it. Feel that frustration. Remember that taste in your mouth. You know what I'm saying? Because then when you moving on and you never want to be back there, you never want to be left back in the dust. Remember that. Remember how it felt when you're broke, right? Remember how it felt when you're overweight, right? Remember how it felt when your heart was broken by a significant other or whatever.
Which is
remember that.
Stand up and fight.
Absolutely. That stand up and fight. That would be my actual just message. Just that taste in your mouth. Remember those. Cherish it. That's why we say feel those emotions. Go through that. Don't get too low. Don't get too high. But have some type of emotion attached to that. So many times I encounter people who are just like, coolers, right? I mean, they just have nothing. They're always just like stone cold about everything.
Yeah.
And to me, that you're missing so much that life is giving you that you can experience. Now there's certain things that you should be stone cold in. But I don't feel like there's certain businesses that you just have to have that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
But they're like, I'm talking about like everyday life. But when it comes to someone who's ready to move forward, it's, remember this, right? Now it's time to move forward and take actual steps forward, right? Coming up with an actual why, because once you have that actual why, that's going to bring forth the fire. That's going to bring forth the desire to move forward.
Yeah.
Because guess what? You could be frustrated right now and all hyped. Oh man, I'm broke as anything. That's it. I'm never going to see this day again. Never. And then you blow a gasket. And then tomorrow it's I'm back to the boom, 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 all down and out and feeling bad for myself. Here we go again.
He's like, which is like you used to do like what was the
I used to be moping around.
what was the not the memory board, what the heck is it called?
The harmonica.
Exactly,
The
the
dream
harmonic.
board?
Yeah, dream board. That's what
Yeah.
it gives you, something that to continually see, to remind yourself to something to get passionate about.
I'm actually going to do a promo right now. I'm not getting paid for this, but this thing works.
I was like,
I have
you
the
have
dream
something?
board. As you guys see, the dream board right there is completely blank. A couple letters from family members about, me being a dream king. I have a virtual one now. I have it's an app on my phone. It's by Hay House, which is a huge publisher. They have a vision board. They call it a vision board. So you can go on whatever, application thing that you have.
That's nice.
But yeah, so that gives me a reminder when I am that. For me, that's a good point, Gabe. I'm glad you brought that up. That is something I go to basically daily, if not at least every other day. I have to keep that stuff in front of me. I have to keep that stuff. That literally gives me energy. That, and also reading, uplifting stuff.
Yeah.
I would tell them maybe, get a personal development book, something that's going to help you to rewire your thinking. Everything's about the fabrication of our brain and how we were conditioned and what the paradigms we come into life with and we're surrounded with. We have to change them. If you want different results, you have to do something different. And you know what I would tell them? You're frustrated? Good. I'm glad. Awesome. Because I know at this point, your life will never be the same again. If you're ready to change, that is the best feeling of frustration you're ever going to feel.
Because frustration is the precursor to success.
Exactly.
Because you have to, if you're stuck in a rut, whatever, that's you doing something. At least you maybe feel like you don't have the results that you want, but at least you're doing something to get to some point, whether it happens now or happens later. But you have to, like you said, like life happens and, not everything always goes according to plan, but as long as you stick with it and, stick to the plan that you have set out for the most part, it will eventually happen. And, frustration, flies away and all you see is success and, moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like we said last week, use that frustration as a stepping stone to move forward. Use it as like a tick mark in your timeline of life. Look, guys, you only have one. This is it. This is the one life that you're living. I mean, how much more motivation do you need to go out there and live your dream? This is it. This is your one whole shot and it's right here in front of you. What are you doing with it? Not in a negative tone. I'm not saying that negative. I'm just saying, what are you have to question that to yourself. What am I going to do with this? This is the one time to make your mark in history. What are you doing with it? Are you going to maintain in this frustrated, spot? Going back to last week's podcast titled Confidence, episode number 21, we talked about people using their biggest weakness to skyrocket their biggest strengths, right? It was like the guy who had the speech impediment, or the guy who had the most passionate preachings. It was because he felt like he was never getting his message across. So he just kept preaching. He was so passionate about it. He just full of fire and flames and sweating through his suit kind of thing, but good for him. And it was like the second preacher was the broke guy who started his life off broke and became this crazy wealthy preacher. And he said, I never want to be broke ever again. I made a decision. I'm sure that was a frustrating time in life, but he never looked back. That's the best part. I think the huge key or takeaway from here is that the person wants to change.
Yes, exactly.
We can come up with all these programs and all these ideas and all these, affirmations and solutions, but if the person's not ready to change, it's never gonna happen. We can't force change down someone's, throat and them successfully come out with a positive result or something that they actually want. All right, well, that wraps this episode up. And how we wrap up every episode, we do it with a quote. And these two quotes is one's from Joyce Meyer and one is from Tony Robbins. So the first one, frustration is a sign I am acting independently. The more you try your own way, the tighter the doors will stay closed. Joyce Meyer. And I absolutely love that. There is a program out there, not to plug anybody, but there's a program out there titled Abundance Factor. And there's a guy who was interviewed who's huge in the personal development arena. His name is John Assaraf. He was featured in the movie The Secret, and he's also featured in this movie, this trailer. And he says that God is the abundance factor, meaning if you carry him with you, you can overcome. So as she's saying, Joyce Meyer is saying, frustration is a sign that I'm acting independently, right? I'm trying to do everything myself. I'm forcing this. Fantastic. I love it. And the second quote is by Tony Robbins, and he says, I've come to believe that all my past failure and frustration were actually laying the foundation for the understandings that have created the new level of living I now enjoy. So going back to, absolutely. Going back to when we were talking about using, these moments of frustration as stepping stones to launch you forward, to traject you further in life. So there you have it, folks. In this episode number 22, Feeling Frustrated, we discussed our stories of frustration, dealing with frustration in our children, overcoming frustration, period, and the advice to folks who are completely frustrated with life. We wrap up the episode with quotes from Joyce Meyer and Tony Robbins. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyleeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyleeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.